to Compass and Clock. I'm your host, Gary Copeland. This InfoTainment podcast explores how to live your best life now and well into retirement. We'll discuss topics in financial planning, housing, and insurance. We'll talk wellness, relationships, and leisure activities. A full, active life requires planning for your goals and preparing for the unexpected. I'll introduce you to a variety of guests, from knowledgeable experts to folks sharing stories of their life experiences and so much more, because life is big. All is intended to help guide you in planning for what you need now and at any age. Like and subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Today, my guest is Beth Pratt. Beth is a violinist with the Sequim Community Orchestra, and she's been playing the violin since the age of 8. She took a long break from the violin from the end of high school until she joined the Sequim Community Orchestra in 2012, which is when it was founded. Beth, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, Mary, I'm so pleased to do this with you today. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're going to have a lot of fun because today you and I are going to talk about hobbies and how they can bring you joy and how it can not only bring you personal fulfillment, but it brings so much to the community at large too. So why don't we just jump right in, and can you tell us, do you like playing the violin and why does it bring you joy?
I tried to quit when I was about 10 or 11. It was a lot. It was a lot of practicing. And my parents said, not yet. And I can't tell you how glad I am that they did that. They waited until I was proficient to give me the opportunity to not play. And by then, I liked it. Once you can play through a tune, I think with a lot of instruments, that's the trick. You got to keep kids engaged until they get the hang of it, right? So I love it. I love that I have a musical outlet. I'm not a soloist. I'm not a paid musician. I play it because I love it. And I love being able to play with a group. I love being able to be a part of a musical conversation. It's not what I do for work. It's not what I do in any other part of my life. I sing along with the radio and I play the violin, and that's a musical outlet for me.
You know, I love that you said you can, when you start at an early age, you stick with it, but you can pick up the violin or any other instrument later on in life too, which I'm just dropping that in there because we'll touch on that later in our interview today.
Absolutely.
Yep. So let's talk about between your high school years and 2012. Did you literally not play the violin at all when you took that break?
No, but you know, when you're done with high school and you played in the band or you sang in the choir or you played in the orchestra, if you don't study music and you go on to college, well, you lose your group, you lose the teacher, you lose that forward momentum. So I have never stopped playing exactly. I've always played Christmas songs at Christmas time, get out and play through my favorite pieces that I learned as a young person, try to learn something new. I'd buy a songbook to learn new pieces, but I wasn't playing with anybody. I just did it for my own fun.
Okay, so you didn't completely abandon the instrument, and you kept yourself tuned.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, keep your ear in tune, keep the muscle memory alive so you know where your fingers go. For those that don't know, guitars have frets, but violins don't. You have to know where your finger goes.
I did not know that because I am not a string instrument player myself. I like to play percussions.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's talk about the Sequim Community Orchestra. How did that opportunity present itself to you?
This is such a passion for me. So I was an activity director in senior living, and a couple of folks came in and they were putting together an informational meeting for local musicians that might be interested in a community level orchestra. Port Angeles has a full-blown symphony with world-class soloists, amazing concert performances. It's a lot. They practice a couple days a week. But for those of us that haven't played since high school, this was like another opportunity. They came to me as an activity professional to see if my residents would like to play. And I said, well, I don't know about that, but can I come? And I was at the very first organizational meeting of the orchestra, and it turned out that it was our two principal violists from the Port Angeles Symphony, who were also music teachers, who saw the lack of string options in Sequim and decided to get this started. So I was excited to get in from the first day.
Wow. So the two folks that were coming around were already part of the orchestra that was so well developed in Port Angeles, and they were trying to get something off the ground in Sequim.
Yeah.
So I know this is a passionate mission of yours with the Sequim Community Orchestra, and it has to do with giving back to the community. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's two pieces, right? So we are an educational organization that plays as an ensemble. We play 2 or 3 concerts a year, no big pressure, no auditions. You need an instrument, and you have to be able to read music, and you have to keep up with the music that's chosen. It's not hard. We're not playing full Beethoven symphonies. We play medium level. And in that way, we've been able to capture, like you said, adult learners. We have a number of adult learners of instruments, from the winds to the strings. But the other piece, and this is so much fun for me, I work in senior care. So for me to get to spend time with children was interesting. And the secondary, or the primary mission really, is education. So part of that, the second prong, is that we provide string music education to the students of Sequim starting in grade 4, because the Sequim School District does not and has never had orchestral string music as an option for students. So starting in the fall of 2013 was our first student group. And in 2019, we had our first students participate in a competition. It was very exciting. They were up against the students at bigger schools that actually had in-school programs out of our little program. And one of my biggest things, and I won't go on and on, but I got to write a grant as the board president for the orchestra to purchase a bass, a stand-up bass, because we had a young man that wanted to play, but we didn't have a full size, and he's 6'4". I got to present that kid with a brand new bass to play while he was still a part of it's our bass, but he gets to play it while he's with us.
Wow. And so the first competition was in the fall of 2019. So did you have a competition the following fall of 2020?
They're in January. And so it was 2019, and we were looking at 2020 before everything started to just sort of slide shut. So it was January of 2019, I believe, was the time that we got our oldest students to compete. Yeah. And that's the only time we've done it yet. We're hopeful for this year.
Okay, that would be great. Keep us posted on that. So here we're talking about you playing the violin. It's a passion, it's a hobby. People can start when they're young, they can start at any age, but let's talk about the word hobby. What constitutes a hobby? Do you have to be a certain age to start? Can you start at 8? Can you start at 18? Can you start at 80?
Yes. Right? I mean, I think of hobbies as the thing that you do that brings you joy, that isn't the thing you do for work necessarily. Maybe it is what you do for work, but most of us do one thing for work and one thing in our spare time. You know, people are hikers, or they're motorcycle enthusiasts, or they're bakers, or there's all sorts of things that we do in our life that are not capitalized. They're not where we earn money. It's not what we do for livelihood. We do it to feed our soul, our mind, to connect with larger bands of our community around us. And also, I think it's a way to share out in music in particular. Our concerts are free. We don't charge. So we can provide an entertainment venue even to play classical themes to an audience that doesn't have to pay to come in, and they don't have to sit through a 3-hour performance. It might be too much, especially for elders. We play shorter concerts. So we provide a different kind of service in this space. But I think, gosh, who cares if you're not the best that ever was? Who cares if you're not the best singer or the best guitarist or the best violinist? Do it because you love it. Find a community of people to share it with, and let it bring you joy. And embrace the mistakes. They're just ways of learning. It's just another way to stretch the brain.
So therefore, you would say what constitutes a hobby is pursuing a passion or artistic channel, or something that you do for yourself, that you do not to make an income. It's not your 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm. And some people can turn that, but gosh, not everybody does, and who cares? Why not make it into something? Why not love the thing that you're doing? You know, spend some time on something that's just fun. We talk a lot about self-care right now in this current world, right? It's just a different kind of self-care.
True. And I'm going to pick up on when you talked about, you said motorcycles. And in the current issue of the Spring Compass and Clock magazine, there is a article about reinventing retirement. And your father wrote the article for me, and he pursued a hobby that he was passionate about, and he actually did turn it into a business.
Mm-hmm.
So people, you should go check that out on the website. Just want to, it can become a business, as you say, but it starts off because you're feeding your soul.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm so excited that my dad was able to find that path for himself, but I think we can all look into that retirement, especially, right? I think that was something for him that he wasn't willing to do. And I look forward and I think, well, what would I do with myself? Well, I love to do all these other things. So they may not be jobs, they may not be a retirement career, but I've got things that will keep me entertained, occupied, my brain thinking forward. I can learn things. There's never something there's never an end to what you can learn about a thing, really.
True. So you work in the senior housing line of business, assisted living, independent living, memory care, etc. In all these years that you've been in that environment, do you see residents with hobbies? Or if you don't see them with hobbies, have you initiated hobbies for them?
I had the great good fortune of starting my career in senior housing as an activity director. And that's the heartbeat of the building. Everybody would say, oh, you have the fun job. They weren't wrong. I had the fun job. So I could bring my crafty stuff, my music stuff, my writer stuff. These are all things I do for myself or I've done with my family. And being able to share that with the residents from my personal passion and connect them to try something new. And then they could teach me. When I first started as an activity director, this is kind of a side note, but they already had a writing workshop set up for the residents on my first day. And the ladies that were in the group invited me to a meeting of their group to test me out before they let me put it on the calendar and be their leader. And for almost 10 years, we had a monthly get together where we would sit and write together. And twice I got to pull together little anthologies for their families of all the poetry and short stories they'd written. So those were folks, some of them were writers from before, and some of them found writing and journaling and create as a creative outlet as their physical mobility had slowed them down. They couldn't garden really anymore. They couldn't get out in the garden. They couldn't walk in the dirt, but they could still write about it or share it with me, and I could be the transcriber for that for them. With music, I have one of the bass players in the orchestra. She's a retired gal that took up playing the bass as a retired person. Our lead second violinist took up the violin in her 40s because she just wanted to learn. So I think it doesn't matter how old you are when you get started. And when you come to a point in your life, if senior community living is for you, the point of senior community living is to take off the pressures of daily living. Let us cook, let us clean, let us worry about the upkeep of the building, maybe provide you with some personal care to give you back some time and energy to spend on something you love. So bringing those hobbies with you is absolutely important. Making the space your own, bring your own hobbies, bring your passions. It helps connect with neighbors, and it helps increase somebody's quality of life and joy in their environment. And I think all of those are good things. There's nothing wrong with any of that.
And if you don't bring them with you, allow your mind to be open to suggestions if the activity director or other residents have ideas to help you pick up a hobby or do something in your spare time that they think would be a good fit. Yeah. And I'm curious, when you did the writing group at the lodge at the lodge at Sherwood, correct? Was it?
Yeah.
Do you know if that group's still going?
I don't, and I should probably find out. A lot of the kind of stalwart members had left us for various reasons. They, moved on to another place and time. So I don't know. But the activity director that came in behind me 4 or 5 years ago, she comes with her own passions. My guess is that they have a whole new host of things. And I do know that they have an artist that comes in and paints with them. So folks have been learning to draw and to paint watercolors, which I think is a brilliant thing. Again, you're not trying to be the next Renoir. You're finding joy in expressing your creative spark, and that's important.
So it sounded like when you were the activity director, there were some activities that were already in place, such as the writing group that we talked about. But right now, as you are in different roles in the senior community, as an employee, do you literally bring your hobby to work with you? Because we know you're a musician, you're a violinist, we've talked about it. We now know you're a writer because you told us about that. I know you're an artist, you love to draw, and you're also a gardener, and you love to can also. So do you bring any of those hobbies to the residents that you serve?
I keep a music stand in my office and a violin in my office with a stack of songbooks. Now that I'm currently working in a memory care community, Discovery Memory Care, and sometimes, especially in this last couple of years, we couldn't bring in volunteers, we couldn't bring in musicians. Visitation rules are tight. We're still under some more guidelines in our end of the world than your everyday grocery store shopper. So if I feel like there's some tension or everybody seems a little listless, yeah, I pop in and play. We've done storytelling together. That's a lot of fun for me to kind of lead the one sentence at a time storytelling. So we've done some of that. And we have an amazing activity department here. And so I work with them and share ideas and ask how I can support it, because it's the heartbeat of the community. It is. We all love the great food. That's important. We all march on our stomachs. Our business people, we all need to keep that engine chugging, but the heartbeat matters. And meeting people where they are and inviting them in to enjoy a passion with you, I think, again, you can't go wrong. You're sharing something that's joyful, and that can only be a good thing.
When things go back to somewhat normal or a new norm, at Discovery Memory Care, for instance, do you see integrating the students from Sequim that are in the orchestral program with the residents at Discovery Memory Care, doing an intergenerational program?
I sure hope to. In the last community I worked for 3 years in a row, we did a donut and coffee social with the students. They served. We provided the refreshments, but the residents were served by the young people, and then they sat down and played. And we had an orchestra set up in the room to play for them. So I'm looking forward to those visitation rules loosening and the school year getting going, to work with our strings teacher to make that happen here. It's a lot of folks have family far flung. And so those intergenerational things, getting young students that want to do oral histories and writing projects, bringing in students to play instruments. I even did some balcony concerts at my previous employer a couple of years ago. We had, including me, we all stood outside the balconies and played music for the residents. So we had a lot of students because they were out of school at that point. It gave them an opportunity to play.
Do you ever envision the students actually being teachers, for residents that are interested in learning an instrument?
That's a brilliant idea. I think I'm going to propose that. I hadn't even thought of it. That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's what I see with the intergenerational program, because then it would be on a regular basis, not just a performance once or twice in the year, but, a continued contact and lessons.
I like that. Yeah. I've done oral history projects, and it's much like that because they come back and forth to clarify. And that's just super fun. It's neat to watch. And then when the kids' paper is done and they have that final edit, to see the residents really engaging with them. But I love that idea of having them play music together, maybe even having the residents playing some percussion along with, or, help hold down that beat.
Yeah, or what they can also do is, because it's memory care where you are, they can play a song from the residents' genre.
Yeah.
And they'll just be the instrumental part, and maybe the residents will sing along.
Mm-hmm. They do with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we do that. We always do. We always play Long, Long Ago. And I always tell them the first song I ever learned was Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. So I'll play it once and they'll sing it. And then I say, okay, what else is it? And they start singing the ABC song because it's the same. And so that's always fun.
Nice. So what kind of advice can you give someone on finding a hobby that fits best for each individual? What would you tell somebody?
Gosh, that's a big one. I think, what do you love? If you love flowers, have you ever tried growing them? If you love to look at artwork, have you ever picked up a piece of charcoal in a sketchbook? If you love music, have you ever picked an instrument up, been to a class, sat in on a rehearsal? If you love to write, have you ever gone to an open mic night and listened to local authors who are they're not Tom Clancy, they're not Stephen King, they're not or Nora Roberts, they're local people writing their own stories. I think that's how you find it. And reaching back into your youth, I have people tell me, oh, I played an instrument way back then, but I don't even remember how. Well, why not try? Did you love it? Did it bring you joy? And I realize I'm one of those people that has more time than others at home. But I don't have kids in the house, so usually I have more time, which is why that laundry list of hobbies sounds so long. But those are just the things I do at the end of the day that make me happy and give me some exercise, or bring some beauty in, or some music, and something I can just enjoy with me and my husband, or just by myself.
So maybe somebody can either sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and ask themselves, what makes me happy?
Yes.
What did I do when I was a teenager? What did I do in my 20s or 30s? And reflect on their life and think about different things that they've done, no matter what age you are, and try to remember something and be like, oh my God, I forgot I used to do that.
Yes.
That was so much fun when I did that. Or, or maybe, sit down with an old friend and brainstorm together, because they'll remember something. I know when I'm with my best friend, Sally, she'll remember something that I don't remember at all. And I'm like, oh, look, I totally forgot that. That was so much fun. I remember when we did that.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes your friends will think of things that you would just go, but gosh, why not? And what does it hurt to try? It doesn't. Maybe just if you see somebody having a good time and go, that paddleboard thing, I think I'll try it. Yeah. That's how I started kayaking. I went and thought, that looks like fun. I went and rented one and went, well, that was good. Maybe I should get myself a kayak, So I think that try things. There's lots of chances to not spend a bunch of money. You don't need to make a big investment, that you can just try, experience, involve yourself, watch. What do you like about it? And don't be afraid to try, because no one is paying that much attention to your first try. That people get worried, I'm going to fail. Well, that you're not trying to get. What do you mean fail? That doesn't make any sense. You're not failing if there's learning to be done. You're just learning, and that's okay. It's like they don't call it catching; they call it fishing.
You've actually succeeded because you tried. You made that attempt. That's not a failure; it's a success. We're going to have to wrap up, but there's one thing that I remember. I was just looking out the window the other day, and there was this large cedar tree in front of the window, and in a line, 1, 2, 3, 3 large, oversized woodpeckers.
Oh my
God.
God.
I grabbed my camera to take a picture, but they flew off too fast. Mm-hmm. And I watched them in flight together. And then I just stood there and looked in the yard for a little bit, and there were different birds. There was this bright yellow one. Then there was a hummingbird. And so it made me think, I want to get a bird book. I just saw, and then that afternoon I saw a bluebird in the yard. So I just told my husband, there were so many birds in our yard of so many different varieties. I can't believe I've never noticed that before.
Mm-hmm. So, and now you're a birder.
Yeah. So take the time to smell the roses, think about things. I want to say, Beth, thank you so much for sharing your personal story, your hobbies, and your passion with us. And thanks for reminding us all that we have the right to be happy, and we should make sure we pursue that. So for our listeners, make sure no matter what your age you are, go out and find something to bring you joy. So
absolutely.
Right? Until next week, take care, and thank you for being with us today. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mary. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Beth.